I had every kind of negative idea about China that you could possibly imagine. So, as you know, Jason, being a Westerner, you would have heard Western social media is very negative about China. So, in Australia, we have a show called 60 Minutes. It's the same in the US, but just different people running the same media. And it's constantly talking about China being heavily militarized, controlling, aggressive. You could get arrested for just about doing anything. That the people were poor. This kind of rubbish. This is just nonsense. But that was all of the beliefs that I had growing up about China.
大家好，我是小满。大家可能都听过国外媒体对咱们中国的抹黑有多离谱，子虚乌有的社会评价体系，说在中国一旦乱穿马路，社会信用分就会锁定你的房门，微信钱包还会被自动抽干。可打脸的是，一位在中国生活了3年的澳洲小哥，直接用镜头扒下了西方的底裤。小哥通过亲身经历告诉全世界，在澳洲额头流血去急诊能干等8小时没人管，但在中国他打个12345热线，不到20小时，连钢板带水泥就全得修好了。这哪里是什么老大哥的监控，这分明是西方根本不敢面对的国家治理效率断代式降维打击。今天这期正片，我们不仅要看西方是怎么联手编造信息茧房的，更要拆解一个核心问题：当西方体系全面走向逐利和反人类时，中国到底靠什么在底层构建起了一个让全球普通人都羡慕的以人为本的社会韧性？
Today we talk about everyday China in 2026. What is life really like? Hey everyone, I'm Jason Smith, originally from sunny California, now living in beautiful Beijing. Today we are joined by Andre Longanau. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Longanu, yes, almost.
Longanau. Andre Longanau, an Australian expat and popular vlogger who has lived in China for years and shares real, everyday China through his honest videos. From public services to vibrant cities, Andre brings genuine, on-the-ground perspectives. He has more than 50,000 followers on Xiaohongshu, which I use all the time, by the way, and I have been following him forever, by the way. Really happy to have him on the show. Also on which also known as Red Note. Andre, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the Bridge to China.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for that introduction. It's lovely to be here.
Let's start with your story. I like to learn about how people end up in China. Why? Let's start with why.
Well, anyone who is a foreigner to China who marries a Chinese girl will inevitably at least regularly visit China. So my dad actually did business in China for probably around about 30 years, probably no longer than I've been alive, over 40 years. So he and his brothers started a company. It's a consumer electronics company. And they've always done business in China and imported the products and then rebranded and sold into the Australian market. So I had a background and understanding of China, but the last time I was here I was like 11 years old. And when I came, it was a very different place. So my wife convinced me to start visiting and change my mind on China. I was heavily propagandized in my younger years. So it took me a long time to really get my head around what China really was.
That is fascinating. Your story is unique in a couple different ways from most of the times I get a story. Number one, your family has a long history with China before you came. And number two, you apparently didn't have a very positive view of China. So when did you move to China? What was your first week or two like?
Okay, so let's go back about 3 years. My wife had basically approached me and said, I've had enough of being in Australia. I can't be here anymore. We have to move to China. Now, my son at the time was 2, and I had finally found a career path where I was finally getting some wins on the board. So my 20s, I had a lot of failures in construction management, which is basically project management kind of work. And finally swapped over to people helping, so counseling and mentoring young adults. So I started to love it. Now, when my wife approached me and said, I've had enough, I thought, hey, you can't move us now. I've just started to get some wins in the career. She eventually convinced me to, let's just do a visit and see, if we can make something work over there. So we went over and I basically said, if we can find work and we can find an apartment that we really like, the look of, because that was what I was really scared of, those two things. Like having no work, no income is a scary idea for any man or any person, really. And secondly, like, where the heck are we going to live? And so the first week was visiting people and just getting my head around what China really was. And we were on the south side of Chengdu, and the rent was very low, and the apartments were brand new. And that just blew my mind immediately. That was the first shocker for me was, man, like, you can live comfortably in China far easily than in the Western world, living at that kind of standard, that standard of living. So that was the first week or two. I was just mind blown. I couldn't get my head around it.
Well, I mean, what kind of conceptions did you have of China, and how were those broken in the first weeks, months that you were here?
I had every kind of negative idea about China that you could possibly imagine. So, as you know, Jason, being a Westerner, you would have heard Western social media is very negative about China. So, in Australia, we have a show called 60 Minutes. It's the same in the US, but just different people running the same media. And it's constantly talking about China being heavily militarized, controlling, aggressive. You could get arrested for just about doing anything, that the people were poor, this kind of rubbish. You know, this is just nonsense. But that was all of the beliefs that I had growing up about China. So immediately we're meeting my wife's school friends and family and relatives and family friends. And I could see immediately, hang on a minute, there's a way bigger middle class here. And they have clearly a lot of assets and plenty to spend on things that they enjoy. And that shocked me big time. I thought, wow, you know, in Australia right now, my family sits in the middle class. And we have a lot of middle class friends and upper middle class, and they're not very liquid in terms of their assets. Their money stuck in assets, and so they can't just be super liberal about traveling and going on holidays and going around the world. But I saw all these Chinese going around the world and traveling China constantly and doing all kinds of crazy things and awesome things and fun things, and you know, buying things for the kids. And this is not really happening that way at all in Australia. And what you see in the USA and Canada on platforms like Twitter and TikTok, you can see people are struggling. They're doing 2-3 jobs and struggling to really get by. So it's just not the case in terms of what I'm seeing here in the middle class anyway.
Well, I'm really happy that you came and that you had this wonderful experience. I wish this could be for millions of other people too. I wish we could take, you know, your couple months of experience and just download that to so many people in the West who have misconceptions about China. Let's start, you know, okay. Actually, I have a bunch of questions. I'm not going to do them necessarily right now. My first video seeing you was a couple years ago. And you were in your xiaoqiu. For people who don't know, that means the community, you know, the group of buildings where people live. And you were talking about how packages just get left out. And then people, when they're ready, they come and find the ones that belong to them. That's the same in my community, by the way. It's exactly the same. I have to say there's a negative side, and that is I hate looking through all the packages from my phone number because like there's just a bunch of packages everywhere. The whole community's packages are there. And I have to spend like 2 or 3, 5 minutes every single day looking to see if anything came for me. But you pointed out that it's amazing that no one steals them. Could you tell us about that? Is this real? Does this happen? Does anyone ever steal your packages? And what do you think this means about Chinese society?
Yeah, I could say from my experience, and you would have experienced it yourself, is that China is a very trust-oriented society. So people really do the right thing by others because they want others to do the right thing by them also. Regarding packages specifically, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is about culture being ingrained in people, but there's just not theft. They just don't do it. The Chinese, where in the Western world, it happens all the time. And you especially see it in the youth in Australia right now. People are just, these kids are just too autonomous. They got no responsibility and they got no one holding them accountable. But here, in the xiaoqiu, in the apartment complexes, sometimes they're outside by the street, these package pickup locations. And that's shocked me even more than being inside a, gated community area, which is already amazing in and of itself. But I've seen some out by the street. and no one steals anything there either. So it's just a cultural thing. People want to do the right thing. We've had maybe someone take ours by accident and they've returned it. And we've also accidentally picked up a couple of parcels that belong to somebody else. And again, we've returned that as well. So it's just a trust system. We want to do the right thing by each other.
You know, the same thing's happened to me. I've taken the wrong package, brought it up. My wife has opened it and said, this isn't ours. So I just bring it back. I didn't even call the people. I just put it back down there open. Like, presumably the person found it and is like, why did someone open my package? But we did return it. I want to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to leave it open. What is that?
Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This was really shocking to me. Like every now and then my wife will bring something up to me. Maybe she'll show me a video or show me some concept or try and explain something to me. And I'll just sit there and go, what? There's no way that's a thing. She said, it's basically a city hotline that you call. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, anytime in your city, in China, and report something, give feedback or tell them about a danger or just get information about your city or something you're curious about. So, for example, my wife told me about it and said, if you find something dangerous, see if you can report it. And so that was in the back of my mind. And I went for a walk one morning and then I stepped on a manhole and it was like it just really looked like it needed to be replaced ASAP. And as a dad, I immediately think, oh, imagine if my son stepped on it while a scooter was going over it or something like that. And he might get his leg stuck in it or worse, if it gets worse, someone could fall into it. And like, I don't know if this is a joke or not, but I see it all the time on social media, people falling into these things in other countries, not in China, but maybe a little southwest of here in another country down in that direction. People fall in and they don't do anything about these broken manholes in other countries. But in China, my wife told me about that. So I called them and I got the camera out. I thought, hey, this is like a little experiment. Let's see what happens. Called them. And I said, oh, 你会说英文吗? I was like, do you speak English? Because I was like, dang it, my Chinese sucks so bad. And they were like, okay, one moment. So I could tell they said, wait a moment, Dengisha. And they got an English speaker on the phone. Again, that was even more shocking. Like, hang on a minute, there's actually an English speaker on their team. And he said, yes, sir, like what seems to be the problem? I reported it. And then within 2 or 3 hours, a guy came out and put cordoned it off with a rope, checked it out. And then I wasn't sure how long this would take. It's going to take a week or more, probably. The next morning I came by around 10 a.m. and it was already fixed. Now, when I say fixed, wow, it used to be a square plastic, square manhole cover, inspection pit cover. And I was looking at it going, it's not square anymore. It's round. Like, what have they done? And it was steel, like, I mean, thick steel. And they had paved all the way around and concreted. I thought, man, this is just unbelievable. This is truly mind-blowing that they would do it that quick. So I don't know how long it actually took them, but all I know is I reported at 2 p.m. and 10 a.m. the next morning, it was already fully fixed, finished with steel plate and concrete and pavers around. So if that's not mind-blowing, like, what the heck is? And that's why I love to do videos using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in different places. I've done it in Chongqing as well, and they were super fast as well. They were 7 hours in Chongqing to get this road up to standard and safe again, because the plates, these big steel plates, had moved across the road and became unsafe. So yeah, it's super impressive and mind-blowing, these kinds of things that they do in China.
There's a pothole in front of my mom's house in Oakdale, California, and it's been there for 10 years. So when you say this, like, I think the idea that, China isn't responsive is a ridiculous Western myth. But, actually, after I saw a couple of your videos, because you made more than one, I saw that there was an area of concrete near a subway near my home in Beijing. I saw that it was swollen and like really bizarre, like swell of the concrete. And I was like, oh, I should do this, but I was too busy and I didn't do it. I walked by 2 days later. It's fixed. So I'm assuming someone else did what you do. They just called and complained and then it was fixed, because Chinese cities are very responsive in terms of fixing local things. It's
Mm,
not just about, you mentioned call about anything. I went
mhm,
to the 12345 Center in Beijing.
mm,
I went
mhm,
there to cover it, to like do journalism on it. And when I
mhm,
was there, I asked them, well, what do people actually call about? And they said 80% of the calls they get, or something like that, I don't have to remember the
mhm,
exact figure, are people are just lost or confused about where to go. And
mm,
they're like,
mhm,
hey, I'm in such and such intersection, but I need to end up at
mm,
this building. Can you help me get there? Especially the
mm.
foreigners. So, I want to encourage
Wow.
all foreigners who are watching this, when you come to China and
Mhm.
you need directions, call this number.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why I first started making videos was because my wife started to feel really misunderstood in China by the people group that we were around, and me and my family. So even though we had this track record, this history in the family of regularly going to China, doing business in China, my dad and basically uncles hadn't been back for 10, 15 years. So 2010, imagine that, between 2010 and now, China's
Mm.
dramatically changed. And so when there's this misconception, it can make Chinese people feel uneasy if they're inside of community, especially intimate community like family. And so when my wife started to feel more and more misunderstood, she would share that with me. And she would especially share with me that I'm making her feel misunderstood as well. And so cross-cultural relationship and marriage can be a little more difficult than already difficult marriage, because marriage is difficult. That's kind of why we have such a divorce rate, both in the East and the West. As I started to learn more and more about China, I started to see, hey, I would hope that I can make some videos that can help some people out there to understand China a bit better. And it can also in turn help their marriages and relationships and friendships and bigger picture things too. Like if there is a politician, an ambassador, or someone out there who has dealings with China or could have dealings, positive dealings with China, could watch my videos and see, oh, they're really open-minded, wonderful, kind, lovely people, the Chinese people. And like even just a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 video is a great example of, yes, they communicate really well. Yes, they care about what the citizens have to say, and they even care about what a foreigner has to say who's a guest in their country, and would even quickly fix the problem too because they care about the public. So it kind of demonstrates what China is and who the Chinese people are, even in 1 or 2 videos of mine. So that's my heart behind it, is to grow and help understanding in the world.
I love your work. I hope that
Hmm.
you continue it. And I think other people should emulate what you're doing. I think there should just be a movement of foreigners all over China running around looking for everything that looks broken and trying and complaining about it. It sounds, like, oh, they're so ungrateful. But actually, I think the government will appreciate it, identifying little things that need to be enhanced and stuff. And then the Chinese
Yep.
people obviously appreciate it too. And they do that too. Okay. I
Yeah.
want to talk about the fire department. You've
Hmm.
described
Hmm.
it as amazing. I actually
Hmm.
haven't had any encounters with the fire department.
Hmm.
So can you elaborate? What do you mean by that? And how does that compare to Australia?
Yeah, well, I can't talk too much about this. I'm not like a subject matter expert in the way that it was my wife's experience in her childhood.
Mm.
When they would forget their keys to the door, they would call the fire department. So this was apparently a
Wow.
policy it was a policy in Chengdu, I believe in the
Mm.
90s and early 2000s, that not only were they firefighters, as we consider them to be, that's what a fire department is, but rescuers. Like they kind of like rescue and save and help and serve the public in a greater way than just firefighting. So my wife's parents forgot the key to the apartment, so they'd call the fire department. And she can't remember exactly, but they were on the top floor, and she remembers them going up in a scissor lift. I don't know how to verify. I don't know if that's a verifiable thing. I don't know if someone out there can also like attest to that in their childhood. did they go up via scissor lifts or walk all the way up 7 or 8 stories of internal stairs somehow and break into the apartment in order to get the key? I don't know. But all I know is that they went to extreme lengths to help people in need. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. And something from my own experience has been my experience with the visa department and police officers here is that was a big shocker for me again, is because they're so freaking friendly. They're so lovely. We had some foreign friends go into the police office and they were doing a bit of paperwork or something. And he went in with his kids, his 2 kids, his son and his daughter. And it was around lunchtime. And the police officer said, "Oh, have you guys eaten? Do you want some of my food?" And she was offering some of her lunch to the kids. So it's those kinds of experiences that'll change you forever in terms of the way that you see the fire department or the police here. And it just breaks those myths about China really quickly because you see they're smiling, they're helpful, they're gentle, they're patient. This is not, I don't have time for you, citizen. Like, are you breaking the law? Then otherwise get out of here. That's how generally we feel about police in the Western world. I don't know about your experience, but even in Australia, I do respect them. But they have to put on this tough exterior, because they also have fear. But here in China, I don't think the police need to fear because there's nothing really to fear, because crime, I believe, would be so minuscule that, they're helping the public in other ways, like actually serving the people, not just solving crimes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they do seem very people oriented. I want to talk about a toilet in the Shenzhen airport with you. Well, I think this is fascinating because honestly, if you look across China everywhere in the countryside, and you're going to be able to find examples of toilets that are not great, that are horrible. In fact,
Yeah,
you
sure.
like the squat toilet in the ground that hasn't been cleaned in a couple days. The same thing in the West. You find the right gas station on the right highway, and you can say,
Sure.
"Oh my gosh, look at this horrible Western toilet." But I
Yeah,
mean,
sure.
there's good and bad in both countries. I mean, it's a 1.4 billion people. You're going to find everything. But could you tell us a little bit about this particular story?
Yeah, so we got into the airport at Shenzhen. I think it was the Bao'an airport. So I think it's newly renovated, or maybe that part has been newly built. And I've got kids. Okay, so if you've got kids and you're traveling with your kids and your wife, so it's a whole family, it's kind of a big deal when you find a nice toilet. So some people watch and think, what are you doing in a toilet filming? And especially if Chinese see this weird foreigner from Australia, like in the toilet recording, like what is he thinking? Why is this so cool to you? It's the most epically decked out, like well-equipped, like family toilet that I've ever seen. So there's like a kid's toilet, there's an adult's toilet, there's a kid's basin, adult's basin. And I can tell that the people that designed that like really sat down as a team and thought of everything, and they wrote them down on a whiteboard. Like, oh, we also need the sanitizer. We also need the changing table. That's what made it viral. Was I made a mistake. And the mistake I made was I went in with my Birkenstocks, and with my foot, I got the changing table lid and I put it down and I stood on the changing table. And apparently, as Chinese social media has taught me very well, is that you have to have socks, and you don't push it down with your foot, you push it down with your hand, and then you put your feet on it with your socks on, not with your shoes. Because they said, how dirty and unhygienic are you? So I thought, oh, I've done something wrong here. So it went viral for that mistake I made. At least in Chinese social media. On Western social media, it went well because it's just an epic toilet. And so that was Shenzhen Bao'an Airport, and it was really cool. And my kids go to the toilet. We can go to the toilet. There's even a section where you can put your baby on the wall in a little seat. So it's just like a ridiculous, amazing example of like people thinking of everything.
Okay. You have repeatedly said, and you started the conversation with this actually today, that things are simply better and cheaper in China. I think I don't know what it's like in Australia, but in America, inflation is insane right now and people can't afford anything.
Yes.
Concerts are actually being canceled. Major musical concerts are just being canceled because no one can afford tickets to these concerts. So from your daily life as an expat in China, what does that mean that things are affordable? What does that mean to you as a consumer?
Yeah, well, the best example that I can give is the rent that you pay for an apartment. So it's different in every area. It's a little strange with the way that it works in regards to property. So maybe not too dissimilar to the Western world. In the middle, if you want to be right in the middle, it's the most expensive and it's going to be probably the oldest kind of apartments that you can find, especially in Chengdu. If you go out a bit, 30, 40 minutes in any direction, you're going to find new apartments and they're going to be cheap and they're amazing and huge. So when we first got here, that's the biggest thing that blew my mind was I was paying 4,200 RMB, which is probably 800 or 900 Australian dollars a month, where I would in Australia be paying 10,000 RMB. So 2.5 times more for rent, but get brand new product here. And when I say product, I mean homes. So that's the biggest thing. So if rent in Australia represents 50% of your income that you have to spend every month, here, what if it's 20%? We're talking about affordability that's 4 and 5 times better overall. And then you have this disposable income that it's hard to experience in the Western world because we have a high tax rate in Australia as well. We have huge tax on everything as well as your income. So you're kind of disincentivized to be hardworking and really push hard in the Western world at the moment. People are feeling really unmotivated, really discouraged. Where if you can come and see a city or a country like this, and all of a sudden you feel, hey, I feel really genuinely rewarded for my work here. You feel just happy about life in general. So not only that, but you've got let's say a meal. So say, for example, the typical meal in Australia, this is 3 years ago. I've been living in China for 3 years now. Say I paid 20 Australian dollars and $5 for a drink, right? That's 25 Australian dollars, which is about 120 RMB. Here in China, I wouldn't pay more than, say, 5 RMB. So we're talking about 5 times less for food as well when you go out. So that's the biggest thing is food and rent. It's just another planet.
I have a friend. His name is Kenny. He's an influencer on Xiaohongshu also. I think he's also on TikTok. His online name is Kenny Wow. He lives in a 5th-tier city north of here and out north of where I am in Beijing. And he talks about the fact that he goes out 3 meals a day. Every day, 7 days a week, because he doesn't like to cook. He doesn't want to cook and he doesn't have to. And he's, what he pays in a day is 50 RMB a day to eat all 3 meals out. That's $8, $9. So this guy spends, I don't know, $70 a week eating every single meal out. And, in the United States, I just went back this year, $70 is 4 or 5 people going out once. So it's really dramatic. It's really amazing how affordable, not everything's like that. When my wife and I go out for sushi in the mall near my home in Beijing, we pay 140 RMB, which is $20, but that's expensive actually for 2 people. So that's still almost unheard of in the US.
看完这段访谈，相信大家和我的感受是一样的。很多我们早就习以为常的日常，比如快递放在路边没人偷，半夜吃的急诊花的几百块，打个市长热线1天之内基建就翻新，在西方的语境里，居然成了不可思议的东方神话。我的判断是，西方的传统媒体和精英阶层正在对中国发起一场有组织、制度性的信息防御战。无论是福克斯新闻的记者在马路中间胡言乱语，还是乔丹·彼得森这样的学者对社会信用分指点江山，他们不是蠢，而是骨子里的恐惧，因为他们很清楚，一旦西方的底层民众发现，在这个世界上有一个国家不需要靠对外掠夺，就能让14亿人享受到安全、廉价、高效的现代生活，那么西方资本精心构筑的普世价值和高收税、低福利的合法性就会在瞬间土崩瓦解。回到我们中国的视角来看，这意味着什么？这就是大国博弈的底层逻辑。美国和他的盟友天天在嚷嚷去风险化 化，供应链脱钩，在芯片和高科技上围堵我们。可他们忘了，现代大国竞争的终极对决，不是实验室里的某一个指标，而是社会治理效率和产业配套的整体韧性。就像视频里提到的义乌，一个玩具车轮子就有上万种选择。这种恐怖的工业毛细血管和12345式的政府响应速度，是靠资本家的 PPT 当不出来的。当西方为了利润把 AI 变成消灭岗位的工具，而中国却用 AI 和政策在死守以人为本的底线时，全球格局的攻守之势就已经悄然发生逆转。中国不费一兵一卒，光凭这种高质量、低成本的生活体验，就已经在对全球的人才和企业家产生强大的磁吸效应。最后，把一句话送给大家：西方的抹黑是他们对自己制度衰落的临终安慰剂，而中国的韧性则是我们对这个时代最好的回答。那么今天想在评论区问问大家，你在生活中打过12345热线吗？哪一次经历让你真正感受到了什么叫中国效率？欢迎在评论区分享你的故事，我们下期再见。